All right, thank you very much, Jim. Just want to let you know that President Obama is expected to address the nation in relation to this grand jury decision not to bring charges against Officer Darren Wilson, giving you a live look at what's going on at the White House right now. And you can see some of the correspondents for various networks standing there with their microphones, giving the reports and talking about what's going on in Ferguson and what's going on in the White House tonight. The president has previously said he wants to see calm. He wants people to be peaceful in this. That statement from Michael Brown's family says the same tonight. There has been some tension and a little bit of pushback against some of the police there. Some items have been thrown at police officers, but for the most part, it sounds like people are heeding the president's words.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, he said, obviously, this issue with Michael Brown being a black teenager, Darren Wilson being a white officer, race obviously playing a huge role. The president just said yesterday that he believes that race in this country, race relations in the U.S. have significantly, improved in the past 10 years. And again, he said, quote, "First and foremost, keep protests peaceful." The family of Michael Brown also asking for that. In fact, they asked for 4.5 minutes of silence after the verdict was read, whether Darren Wilson would be indicted on these and face charges or not. That 4.5 minutes, they said, would signify the 4.5 hours that he was laying out in the streets there after he was shot and killed. But again, the grand jury, after 2 days of deliberations, coming back deciding not to indict Officer Darren Wilson. We are still waiting here for President Obama to come and give his thoughts on this situation. But again, as Patrick said, it looks like these protests are peaceful for the most part so far.
Now, we do know that President Obama has addressed the nation about these sensitive issues before, and you're listening to him live now on Fox 4 News at 10.
As all of you know, a few minutes ago, the grand jury deliberating the death of Michael Brown issued its decision. It's now come that either way was going to be subject of intense disagreement, not only in Ferguson, but across America. So I just want to say a few words suggesting how we might move forward. First and foremost, we are a nation built on the rule of law. And so we need to accept that this decision was the grand jury's to make. There are Americans who agree with it, and there are Americans who are deeply disappointed, even angry. It's an understandable reaction. But I join Michael's parents in asking anyone who protests this decision to do so peacefully. Let me repeat Michael's father's words. Hurting others or destroying property is not the answer. No matter what the grand jury decides, I do not want my son's death to be in vain. I want it to lead to incredible change, positive change, change that makes the St. Louis region better for everyone. Now, Michael Brown's parents have lost more than anyone. We should be honoring their wishes. I also appeal to the law enforcement officials in Ferguson and the region to show care and restraint in managing peaceful protests that may occur. Understand, our police officers put their lives on the line for us every single day. They've got a tough job to do to maintain public safety and hold accountable those who break the law. As they do their jobs in the coming days, they need to work with the community, not against the community, to distinguish the handful of people who may use the grand jury's decision as an excuse for violence, distinguish them from the vast majority who just want their voices heard around legitimate issues in terms of how communities and law enforcement interact. Finally, we need to recognize that the situation in Ferguson speaks to broader challenges that we still face as a nation. The fact is, in too many parts of this country, a deep distrust exists between law enforcement and communities of color. Some of this is the result of the legacy of racial discrimination in this country. And this is tragic because nobody needs good policing more than poor communities with higher crime rates. The good news is we know there are things we can do to help. And I've instructed Attorney General Holder to work with cities across the country to help build better relations between communities and law enforcement. That means working with law enforcement officials to make sure their ranks are representative of the communities they serve. we know that makes a difference. It means working to train officials so that law enforcement conducts itself in a way that is fair to everybody. It means enlisting the community actively on what should be everybody's goal, and that is to prevent crime. And there are good people on all sides of this debate, as well as in both Republican and Democratic parties, that are interested not only in lifting up best practices, because we know that there are communities who've been able to deal with this in an effective way, but also who are interested in working with this administration and local and state officials to start tackling much needed criminal justice reform. So those should be the lessons that we draw from these tragic events. We need to recognize that this is not just an issue for Ferguson, this is an issue for America. We have made enormous progress in race relations over the course of the past several decades. I have witnessed that in my own life, and to deny that progress, I think, is to deny America's capacity for change. But what is also true is that there are still problems, and communities of color aren't just making these problems up. Separating that from this particular decision, there are issues in which the law too often feels as if it is being applied in a discriminatory fashion. I don't think that's the norm. I don't think that's true for the majority of communities or the vast majority of law enforcement officials, but these are real issues. And we have to lift them up and not deny them or try to tamp them down. What we need to do is to understand them and figure out how do we make more progress. And that can be done. That won't be done by throwing bottles. That won't be done by smashing car windows. That won't be done by using this as an excuse to vandalize property. And it certainly won't be done by hurting anybody. So to those in Ferguson, there are ways of channeling your concerns constructively, and there are ways of channeling your concerns destructively. Michael Brown's parents understand what it means to be constructive. The vast majority of peaceful protesters, they understand it as well. Those of you who are watching tonight understand that there's never an excuse for violence, particularly when there are a lot of people in goodwill out there who are willing to work on these issues. On the other hand, those who are only interested in focusing on the violence and just want the problem to go away need to recognize that we do have work to do here. And we shouldn't try to paper it over. Whenever we do that, the anger may momentarily subside, but over time it builds up, and America isn't everything that it could be. And I am confident that if we focus our attention on the problem and we look at what has happened in communities around the country effectively, then we can make progress not just in Ferguson, but in a lot of other cities and communities around the country. Okay?
Mr. President, will you go to Ferguson when things settle down there?
Well, let's take a look and see how things are going. Eric Holder's been there. We've had a whole team from the Justice Department there, and I think that they have done some very good work. As I said, the vast majority of the community has been working very hard to try to make sure that this becomes an opportunity.
All right, you've been listening to President Obama speaking live here on Fox 4 News at 10, calling for peace. He said he wants to echo Michael Brown's parents' words that he wants people to be peaceful, as we give you a live look at what's going on in Ferguson, Missouri. Right now, the holiday lights are up. There's been a lot of tension there, and the president calling for people to work together in light of the grand jury's findings that the officer will not be indicted here, and saying if you want to make progress as a community, you've got to be able to do that without throwing bottles or smashing car windows.
Yeah, and the president obviously calling for peaceful protests. Now, we are just confirming. Fox News is reporting in the St. Louis County Police Department, tweeting that shots have been fired in Ferguson. We're hearing reports that a shot was fired at a Ferguson police car at the window. Obviously, you're looking live at pictures. You can see smoke in the streets there. You see people running. So, even though the president and Michael Brown's family calling for peaceful protests, it looks like there may be some chaos out there on the streets. 400 National Guard troops were called into Ferguson to assist the police department there so that they can go along with their duties and help with them. Schools have been shut down tomorrow, the rest of the week, obviously Thanksgiving this week. Businesses nearby shut down, and this is the reason why. People are scared.
And we are just getting word from the Associated Press. All of this information confirmed. You're watching it live right here on Fox 4 News at 10. We've got cameras on the ground there, but we just want to let you know that several police cars have been vandalized. That is the latest word here. And the AP also reporting that protesters hugged a barricade, taunted police, sometimes with expletives, some chanting murderer about the officer. Gunshots were heard down the street, somebody throwing a water bottle. It bounced off a police shield, and some in the crowd reportedly trying to stop some of the others from taking part in vandalism and violence that the president himself just condemned at the White House, and that Michael Brown's parents say they don't want to see tonight. But certainly this community bracing for the worst and hoping for the best tonight, and President Obama calling on people to bring out their best in dealing with the aftermath of this decision.
Obviously, we will continue to follow this developing story. Again, you are looking live at the streets there of Ferguson, Missouri. People are reacting to the decision by a grand jury tonight. No indictment for Officer Darren Wilson in the shooting death of Michael Brown. Again, we will continue to follow this. You can get the latest on air as well as online. You can go to our website. We are continuing to update that, as well as our Facebook page. Our website is up right now. It's fox4now.com.